Kia ora, I'm Kate from New Zealand, and for the last 5 days I've been exploring Sydney and Australia, and I had a few insights I'd like to share. I've been overseas only twice, and both to small wild places, so this city was new for me. 8th of July 2024, morning. I sit on a plane to Sydney, rolling the small earth on my seat screen, clicking on countries and feeling quite huge. Since when have we been able to travel over mountains and oceans at Godspeed? I feel like God up here, tiny cities below. I could flip them with my finger if I wanted. How's that fair? The closer I get to Sydney, the more I wonder whether these faraway places should live only in my imagination. Will the illusion fade when I step onto Bondi Beach and Bondi Rescue materialises in front of me? I wonder that too of all those places under my fingertip. One day when I visit, will the magic fade? Should I stay in my corner of the world? Or explore and find that there is so much more than could ever exist in the page of books? The pages that were once my escape. If an escape becomes real, do I lose that comforting home, or find a whole other world with people and places I could never imagine? I like to think the latter. That's the more hopeful version, and I like hope. One day, when I can afford to, I'll explore more. I think I want to. As a child, one of my favourite books was one called The Encyclopedia of People. I pored over its pages, reading of lives so vastly different to mine, yet feeling connected in that strange way humans are. Like in the pandemic, when we realised we have the same hopes, fears and wishes, and found we could in fact be kind on a grand scale. I think maybe that's the thread. I want to go and see it for myself around the world, try and see that thread I know is there. Or am I just naive, a naive Kiwi sheltered from the rest of the world by a life spent on an island at the bottom of the world, a life spent on beaches and in the bush, up mountains and on bikes? I'll have to see. 8th of July 2024, afternoon. We've arrived. I walk on dirty streets, dodging unsmiling people, wondering where they're running to, or what they're running from. Throngs of tourists walk around Darling Harbour. I can't believe the steady stream. You can tell I'm from Taranaki, a country hick is easy to spot. They smile at everyone they pass, stop in the middle of the footpath, wear sensible shoes, have questionable fashion, and stare at tall buildings and exclaim loudly. They give me the heebie-jeebies. I don't need a big sign saying I'm a tourist. Everything screams it. Anyway, I'm having fun. The traffic noise is fading into the background and I'm enjoying the bustle. The novelty is exciting. I saw an ibis and took a lot of photos of it. They seemed like a kiwi mixed with a seagull mixed with a pukeko. I almost fall over when I look up at tall buildings. I thought the opera house was beautiful. I like the narrow alleys like the ones I read about in books. Maybe the magic from books doesn't disappear. Maybe I'm in the book. 9th of July 2024, morning. Kids have an edginess here that I'm not used to. Living in the city with the population of New Zealand grinds the innocence from kids until they are calloused and hardened like my 7-year-old hands from the monkey bars. It's a city of monkey bars, traffic, noise, money, tourists, food, water, coming and going high-rises, concrete, honking views, smog. And art, music, trees, singing, swimming, TV, movies, flags flying, culture, ice cream, history. Swinging from one thing to the next. 3 girls were riding the elevator down to school this morning in the apartment building we're staying in. At 6:50 a.m. I left for school at 8 a.m. when I was a teenager. I got enough sleep. We drove only 15 minutes. They might have an hour train ride. They'll have to be wary of people. They'll have to hustle. Or am I projecting my fears? Are these the monkey bars they're used to? Yesterday I saw a daycare in the city centre. It sat in a concrete building under an overpass, and I saw a playground with cars rushing overhead. How is a child meant to grow up like that? I knew only trees, grass, rivers, sand, waves. Is that privileged, or should that be normal? Is it normal? I liked it, the quiet, the sounds of nature, water bubbling, wind and leaves, the roll of the ocean, green, blue, yellow, vibrancy and richness of a different kind. Bare feet, calloused hands, grass-stained knees. Is one wrong and the other right? Or are they just different? What are the children like when they grow up in a city? A man carrying a big box through the city centre dropped something that was clutched in his strained hand. I picked it up for him. He seemed surprised and was thanking me profusely. It was easy and I was glad to, and is that not normal? How do you harden to that? Will I ever be able to harden to that? Do I even want to? I stood on the balcony at our little apartment looking out across the city. Buildings stretched in all directions. I saw bridges, apartments and churches. I looked down and felt woozy. Birds must have immense faith in their wings, leaping and knowing they'll open. Immense faith in themselves. What if one day they leapt and they didn't open? Maybe I need to have more faith in myself. I know my wings will open when I take risks. I had a childhood surrounded by soaring birds. I know about flying. 9th of July 2024, afternoon. We visited a church and an old convict barracks. I felt sad at the hardship endured by some so young they would have grown to believe the world was awful, and no one no different. But these stories exist, and I know my naivety may be looked at with disdain. These stories are the threads in the tapestry of our history, the cloak that we wear around our shoulders. A sleeping quarter that housed 140 convicts, 70 in hammocks, 70 on the floor. Such horror. I write this sitting in bed in our hotel, acutely aware of the comfort. I can't begin to imagine, but I must. I walked the streets of Sydney again today, clocking up 26,000 steps, 4,000 shy of yesterday, and found myself face to face with the homeless sleeping outside Cartier. My heart aching at their forlorn faces staring at the concrete, holding a cup towards the sky, hoping, and those in Cartier looking at jewels. Go outside, stare at the water, it's one big glistening jewel. Travel is overwhelming but beautiful, but I must remember I have a grounding. I have roots and wings. I can hold fast but stretch far. 10th of July 2024, morning. The sharpness of the city still grates slightly, but I'm opening to it, getting used to the people. People everywhere. We took the train at rush hour. A train! I've never been on a city train before. I'm from a town of 58,000 people. There's barely a bus system. I've been on one train in my life, ever, so this morning was my second. And I'm 22. I grinned like a mad thing, waving my camera around, pointing out all the interesting things. Wow, it's so quiet. Wow, this is really efficient. Wow, what a cool way to get places. People didn't make eye contact or smile or seem to want to make conversation. Is that a city thing? See, I'm naive. In my hometown, you say hi to people you pass in town and can stop in the middle of the footpath to take photos and there's no rushing. Here, if you don't rush, you're unusual. We took the train south. We left the cacophony of the city behind for the beaches, Bondi, Tamarama, Bronte and Coogee. Salt air slipped easily into my lungs. I breathed a breath of home. The Tasman sea air the same as across the ditch. The endless ocean met the endless sky and all I could see was the blue all the way from me to forever. That's more what I'm used to. It made me appreciate it more. I guess that's what travelling does. It opens your eyes to contrast and consequently appreciation for the lives of others and for the life you live yourself. I'm grateful. We walked 6 kilometres from Bondi to Coogee. I couldn't believe the gold sand, a stark difference from the rich black volcanic sand of home. I saw Bondi Rescue come to life. It didn't lose its magic, it amplified it. I ticked off one thing to spot, a lifeguard. Oh, and I ticked off another thing, a red-bellied black snake, lying in the sun on the edge of the path, its tongue flickering. 10th of July 2024, afternoon. I swam in the clear water of Bondi, body surfing the perfect rolling waves. A lifeguard or clubby came out. It was quiet, and body surfed alongside me. He smiled, I did too. I was glad for the water temperature. Their winter water temperature is our summer water temperature. I always find myself in the ocean, gliding beneath the surface, a place where silence pervades and it's just me and the sea. It's strange how we call these oceans different names, when really we're all touching the same thing. Why do we need to draw invisible lines and things that don't need dividing? 11th of July, 2024, morning. There's a lot to be said for the power of walking. In the last 3.5 days I walked 88 kilometres, that's over 2 marathons, simply through exploring. I've taken 3 forms of public transport, the train and bus yesterday and the ferry today. This morning we took the boat to Manly, only a 20-minute ride from the central city. We stepped off the hamster wheel and onto the beach. Life was slower, the buildings were shorter and my breathing eased. We were in my happy place by the water. We walked up and down talking about everything and nothing, while admiring the rich blues and yellows of the beach. We stopped for a hot chocolate, then a sit to watch the surfers. We walked to a small cove where scuba divers were leaving from and I wished I could join them. I'm glad to have my certification and to be able to dive when I want, but we were flying out the next morning, which was less than 24 hours later, which is the recommended surface interval between diving and flying. I swam though, happy to be back in the ocean, ducking and diving in the waves. It's a simple pleasure, but a universal one. 11th of July, 2024, afternoon. Back to the power of legs. It was about 2 p.m. when we got off the ferry in central Sydney. My sister wanted to do some shopping. My mum wandered with her, and my dad wanted to go back and have a rest. I wanted to explore more of the botanic gardens, so I did. I set off with my backpack, camera and a head full of 3 days of Sydney streets. I wandered until I found the gardens, then walked around them for a while. I was happy to see where I ended up, letting my legs take me where they wanted. There's a freedom that lies in solo adventures, even small ones. Armed with my limited knowledge of Sydney and its workings, I stepped into the small unknown to see what else there was to see. I know Australia is a Western country not that dissimilar to New Zealand, but the size of the city and the small intricacies that come with it, I was still getting used to. My mission while I was over in Australia was to see some animals I hadn't seen before, and the botanic gardens provided. I stopped to watch a white-faced heron, and a couple stopped to watch me watching it. I looked over to them when I realised, and they gave me a thumbs up, maybe glad to see someone stopping and really taking in the beauty around them. I saw a kookaburra which posed for my camera, and I saw a water dragon, all just lying around hidden from people. No one seemed to see but me, and I got to stand and observe all by myself, just me and an animal looking eyes, sharing that same essence all living things seem to share. The city fell away and I was connected. I like exploring and being open to the world and what it has to show me. I was content. I was happy. It was a good day. 12th of July, 2024, morning. I'm flying home and the ocean of cloud has broken and I can see the Tasman Sea. It goes on to the edge of the earth. I feel like we're at the edge of the atmosphere. I feel a mere dot in time and space. What does work matter? What do small mistakes matter? What does what I wear matter? I gain perspective 11,000 metres in the air. I always do. I would fly just to feel like this. I need to remember how small things are in terms of the whole wide world and the whole wide universe. My grandpa has crossed the Pacific Ocean on a yacht, sailing for weeks without land in sight. I look across to the horizon now and look down to the sea and think of him and his small crew all alone on the surface of the world, floating closer to space than land. Are we aliens on the sea and in the sky, floating and flying when we are designed to do neither? How unnatural it seems, but how natural it feels. I am at peace in the air and at peace on the ocean. I am a bird and I am a fish. I have wings and gills. I am a human, but still an animal, and I seek to feel home, and I seek equilibrium. When I am in vast places, the sea, the sky, I feel at ease. When I return to the ground and into the tumbling heap of buildings and cars, I feel jolted, tossed, tumbled, further away from equilibrium. When you're in the air, the world is big. When you're on the ground, a building is big. It's all perspective. Blue water and blue air meet softly at the horizon. I don't know where one starts and the other ends. It's beautiful, it's simple, it's blindingly vast. I want to travel, to open up to the world, to be grated slightly so I can be raw and ready to learn all there is. I want to travel to be in the sky and on the sea so I can find balance in the vastness. This flight is so different from the bustling streets of the city. It's easy to forget the city is small and the world is wide. Sometimes it feels the other way, trapped in the confines of tall buildings, and the world too far to cross to seek distant horizons and better opportunities. Really, it's the other way around now. I can cross oceans in a day. That ease makes me feel like the world isn't so divided after all. 12th of July, 2024, afternoon. The sun is low enough that it licks only the top edge of the southern Alps. Thin gold lines run towards each other, tangling and straightening out for the length of the South Island. It's beautiful. I'm back in New Zealand, that's for sure. The green gave it away when we approached Auckland this morning. Now the Alps are reminding us as we head south to Christchurch. Cloud runs through the valleys like glaciers, slow, white and sculpted. I can see why they call this place God's Own, God's Own, and why some people think it feels like another planet. It is starkly different from so many other places in the world and so far away from them too. We are isolated, but that isolation brings beauty and peace. This trip has reminded me of my gratitude for my family and home, and made me realise we're all a lot closer and more connected than we think.